Thank you for coming out today. This is the first in our series of Meet the Pastors and learn a little bit about the area churches and the churches who are sharing the space. Laurie Devine and I work together with the education team to try to put together some nice offerings for you. And one of the things that you'd ask is, so what do those Anglicans believe? And we said, well, what do those UUs believe? So soon enough, we're going to find out. Christine came to us. Well, I really didn't know her except casually, but when we did Jesus Christ Superstar, and I learned that she was a priest at the West Side Anglican Church, Christ Church
Lakeside,
on the west side of the lake. I thought, wow, she was looking for a place that she might land and share her talents a little bit more abundantly, and I said, well, we've got just the place for you. So she's been with us since January. She is the true ordained Anglican among us. She's got more information than any of us do about who we are and why we do what we do. So I wanted you to be able to hear straight from the beautiful horse's mouth. And also to say, I know that some of you are interested in, which she may or may not have, I'm not sure how she's prepared. The history of the congregation is up on the wall right here, along with a brochure that we've just got replenished about the dancing saints, which are on the wall. Some of you have been asking about that, and I don't know how much Christine would plan to go into that. But Robin McGrath, our former rector, is the one who commissioned that. So these brochures will be available along with this as well. So Christine, knock our socks off and tell us who we are as Anglicans.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you all for coming, and really I'm so happy that we're able to share this beautiful space with you as well. If any of you saw Jesus Christ Superstar, you would have seen just the final week of Jesus Christ's life. So what happened after that, you didn't get to see in the play. But we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the Anglican Church and also how that became the Episcopal Church in the United States. We call ourselves Anglican Episcopals here because we are under the big umbrella of the Anglican Communion, which covers many countries and many, many churches. However, there's a reason, and I'll tell you that, why in the United States we are not Anglicans, but Episcopalians, although we do still fall under that same umbrella of the Anglican Church, the Anglican Communion. So the Anglican Church began in England, and before Henry VIII, everybody was basically Roman Catholic. And Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife, Catherine of Aragon, because she did not provide him with a male heir. And so the church, of course, being Roman Catholic, would not allow divorce or an annulment of a marriage. So King Henry VIII decided he would become his own church, the Church of England, and he became the sole, he became the person in charge of the Church of England. So it was up to him to make the rules. He appointed bishops and archbishops, and he basically had everything his own way. And that happened in the 1530s. And from that time, the British monarch is the supreme governor of the church. So in the United States, when people started leaving England and coming to the United States during the Reformation and the Puritan times and all of that, they settled in Jamestown in 1607, and they were practicing the Church of England there, the Anglican, which even though Henry became the sole source of the Church of England, it was still basically Anglican. Didn't really change anything except the rules that he wanted to change. Sound familiar? So as we became closer to the time of the American Revolution, the Americans became split. You know, some were royalists and some were loyalists. And the problem with the priests and the churches in the United States that were Anglican, they had to swear allegiance to the King of England. Obviously, that did not go over very well with people that wanted freedom from England. So there became this split. Some of the church, the bishops and the priests went back to England or went up to Canada, and others stayed in the United States, and they continued with the church, the Anglican Church. But there became more growing discontent with having to say their allegiance to the King of England. So, the Anglican Church and the Episcopal Church, we believe in what's called the apostolic tradition. So, any of our priests and bishops are ordained from another bishop who was ordained by another one, all the way back to the apostles. And that wasn't going to happen in the United States because we didn't have bishops. So finally, a bishop came from Scotland and ordained the very first American bishop, Samuel Seabury. And he then was able to consecrate bishops in the Anglican Episcopal tradition without having to swear allegiance to the King of England. So the Episcopal Church in the United States, and also the Anglican Church to some extent, has begun to engage with other denominations in the 20th century. And we're finding that out. Right now, we're hoping that Michelle, as a Methodist pastor, will be able to be in full communion with the Anglican Church. We are, at this point in time, in full communion with the Lutheran Church in the United States. That means that a Lutheran priest or pastor can celebrate up here, can celebrate the Eucharist, and take communion and do everything that an Anglican Episcopal ordained priest can do. And the Methodists are in that conversation right now, and we're hoping good news will happen there.
You might also add that John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Church, was Anglican initially.
Yes.
And broke off, which is why I can't be ordained in tradition. I could be one or the other, but not both.
I know, detail, politics, right? So in 1988, the Episcopal Church in the United States ordained the first woman as a bishop. And in 2003, which caused a huge schism in the church, the church openly ordained an openly gay man to be the Bishop of New Hampshire. But that caused huge schisms and rifts. You know, many of the congregations broke away, as you can well imagine, wanted to go off, didn't want to have anything to do with that. So it was a very difficult time in the Anglican Episcopal Church. In 2006, Catherine Jefferts Schori was ordained the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church in the United States. The presiding bishop is the person that think Pope, but not. The person that is head of the whole church in the United States. But they don't have that infallibility like the Roman Catholics put on their Pope. And I actually know Catherine. She came and did classes when I was taking my classes for priesthood, seminary classes. She taught us homiletics and several other things. It was before she was the presiding bishop, but just a wonderful person. And in that year, with her as a presiding bishop, the Episcopal Church of the United States of America declared support of gay and lesbian persons as people of God. In 2009, the 76th General Convention prohibited congregations from denying ordination to homosexual priests. They authorized bishops to permit priests to bless same-sex unions and the creation of liturgies that may be used in them. And I have done several before same-sex marriage became legal in the United States. The Episcopal Church has a beautiful commitment ceremony, absolutely beautiful. If I was ever to get married again, that's what I would use instead of the traditional marriage ceremony. It's beautiful, and I have had the wonderful honor of being able to preside at several of those ceremonies. But as you can imagine, that still just meant all kinds of more dissent and people leaving because that's just not right. But the Episcopal and Anglican churches really do pride themselves on being welcoming of everyone. We are all children of God, and therefore you are all welcome and you are all loved. So what does it mean to be an Anglican Episcopalian? Well, those books, those red books in front of you every Sunday if you're there, someday you may, if you're wasting time, you can pick one up and I'll tell you what page to look at. So as Episcopalians and Anglicans, we hold certain core beliefs that shape our faith and practice. And some of these are God's inclusive love. We believe and follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, whose life, death, and resurrection saved the world. Our core belief is that God loves everyone without exception. This love extends to people of all genders and sexual orientations who serve as bishops, priests, and deacons, and lay people. And the Book of Common Prayer, that is that red book. This treasure chest is an absolute treasure chest of devotional teaching and resources, and it's central to our worship. It allows for diverse forms. We have 4 different Eucharistic prayers, the prayers we say when we're up here preparing communion. Has 4 of those, plus we have 5 others. The ones in the prayer book, the Book of Common Prayer, are A, B, C, and D, and then we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we can do things differently. We don't do everything exactly the same every Sunday, although a lot of it remains the same, because that rite, that familiarity is very important to us. It's not that we're stuck in concrete. We can move, but we like that rite. And the Bible, of course, the foundation, our foundation, the Bible is understood through tradition and reason. It contains all the things necessary for salvation. And Scripture permeates our worship from beginning to end, and I'll go over some of that in just a few minutes. Then we have the baptismal covenant, and that's used during baptisms and special occasions. And what it does is reaffirms our commitment to Jesus Christ. And it includes a question and answer version of the Apostles' Creed and emphasizes how we live out our faith. And we have 2 creeds that we go by that actually define our beliefs and what, who we are. And those are the Nicene Creed and the Apostles' Creed. And those are also in that Book of Common Prayer. And the sacraments we have 2. Now, if anybody was raised Roman Catholic, as I was, we know there's more than 2. But in the Anglican Episcopal Church, we have 2. We have baptism and Holy Communion. So every Sunday or every time we celebrate the Mass and the Eucharist, we have the sacrament of Holy Eucharist. Now, besides baptism and Eucharist, we recognize other spiritual markers in our faith, such as confirmation, and that just reaffirms our faith. And that usually happens, well, it can happen at any age older, but generally around age 12 or so. Reconciliation of a penitent or confession, which we pretty much do a group confession every Sunday in church, but people can still make an appointment with a priest if they have things heavy weighing on their hearts and spirit, and they can talk that over with a priest. It's not like, as a child growing up in the Catholic Church, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, let's see, what did I do today? Oh, let's see, this week I said, darn, I disobeyed my parents 3 times. Oh gosh, and I didn't do something that I was supposed to do. So then, you like go in and you tell the priest that, and the priest says, and your penance is 3 Hail Marys and 4 Our Fathers, and and you go and do that. We don't do that. Also, marriage, matrimony, it's a sacrament in the Roman Church, but not technically a sacrament here, but it's a spiritual marker, and the same as holy orders. When we are ordained, that is not considered a sacrament in the Anglican Episcopal Church, but it is definitely a marker of our spiritual journey. So what happens here on Sunday mornings when we have worship? Well, first of all, we have what is called the Liturgy of the Word. And that starts out with a reading from the Old Testament. Then we have a psalm. And the psalm is generally chanted now because a psalm is a song. So we chant that. And then after the psalm comes a reading generally from the New Testament. And after that comes a reading from the Gospels, one of reading from Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. And that comprises the beginning of our service. We have the Liturgy of the Word. After those readings, then the priest or a designated person who's going to preach gives a homily or a sermon. That typically is based on those readings that we heard, but hopefully tied into the 21st century and not just leaving us in the first century. That is really important when you're giving a sermon, to make it seem real to the people who are listening to it. Then after the sermon happens, then we have what are called the prayers of the people. Well, we say one of the creeds, either the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed. And then there's the prayers of the people. And that's where we offer up intentions for people in our congregation, for the church at large, for government, for all kinds of things. And people have the opportunity to also then offer up any special intentions they have. We pray for people that have passed away, or people that are having an illness or otherwise struggling in life. And once that is done, then we have the sign of peace, which does not mean church is over. I do have to say that quite often we get carried away with a sign of peace. And when I have brought non-Anglican Episcopalians to church, they think church is over. Nope, sorry, it's only halfway. So we offer each other a handshake or sign of peace. And that's just sharing Christ's love with each other. And once that is done, then we go into what's called the Liturgy of the Table. And that is where we celebrate what Jesus Christ gave us on his last days on earth. He gave us the Holy Eucharist. We celebrate through remembrances of the Last Supper, and the liturgy that we say pretty much all stems from that. And the words at the beginning of it may be a little bit different, but as it gets down towards the end, where we bless the bread and the wine, that becomes the words that Jesus said, at least what we assume he said, that we have read in the Bible, that happened at the Last Supper. This bread is my body, this wine is my blood. Now, if you were raised Roman Catholic, was anybody raised Roman Catholic here? So, if you're raised Roman Catholic, You can't go to communion unless you're a Catholic in good standing, because the Roman Catholic Church believes firmly in transubstantiation. When they consecrate that bread and that wine, it is the body of Christ. It is the blood of Christ. Therefore, if you are not a baptized and practicing Catholic, you're not welcome at the table. Not so with us. We believe Jesus Christ is present in that wine and in that bread, but because all of us here make it so. It's not just me standing over there and saying this. We are here. We are sharing in Christ's love. And that brings Christ into that bread and wine. Totally different concept than the Roman Church. So because of that, everyone who walks into this church is welcome at our table. You can have communion in just bread, just wine, or both. Or you can come up and cross your arms and we'll give you a blessing. But you're welcome, no matter what your beliefs, no matter what you feel about what happened up there. You're always welcome. Let's see. So where to find more information? That's in that Book of Common Prayer. And our catechism for the church is starts on page 845. And that really just delves much further deeper into what I've given you a brief overview of. It talks about our beliefs. It's what we use when we are mentoring people that are going through what we call the catechumenate, when they are wanting to be received into the Episcopal Anglican Church. And those classes typically take place before Easter, during Lent, and maybe a bit before that. And then at Easter, they are generally baptized, or if they've been baptized previously, they would be confirmed. So it's a very good place. Like I said, someday if you're sitting here and you're bored, not that you would possibly be bored. But maybe you get here early, and you're waiting for things to get set up.
I'm just going to tell them to take out the book.
Take it out and read it. So that's kind of a real quick and dirty about the Anglican Episcopal Church. So, questions? Maybe I can answer them, maybe not. Yeah? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So it's no longer a condition that you be confirmed to receive communion.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. He asked if it was a condition to receive communion that you had to be confirmed. No, that is not the case. I think that was old years ago, especially in England, Canadian traditions. And really, you don't even have to have had a first communion like you do in the Roman Church. Everyone's welcome. Yeah. Okay, she asked about the doctrine of original sin. And that is the concept that we are all born with sin in our souls, going way back to Eve because, she broke the rules. No, she was the first temptress. No, that's not part of our beliefs anymore. It's changed. Yeah. Yes, it has changed. Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely some old beliefs that still are held in the Roman Catholic Church because The wheels grind much more slowly, if ever, in that church. But the Anglican and Episcopal churches have really sought to come into the 20th and the 21st century and have scholars that have spent much time looking at that. Yeah. Yeah, so she asked how those changes happen. Not quickly. A lot of study. The College of Bishops, Archbishops, they all get together. There's a lot of study. Right now, I'm part of a group that is revising the Book of Common Prayer. And oh my goodness, just bringing inclusive language in causes a furor. It's like, can we just say all of us, not men? But no, we can't. It's hard, but it is overall, especially in the Episcopal Anglican Church, much more of a process of everyone, and it doesn't just trickle down from on high. Like I said, it's a whole committee that's working on. Yeah. Yes?
I have heard things about Mary Magdalene that maybe you can clarify where she was or she wasn't.
So she asked about Mary Magdalene. So commonly, she's been known as a prostitute. And that may be true, may not be true. I don't know for sure. But what she did was she was in the followers, along with all the disciples, that followed Jesus and the disciples around as they were teaching. Now, typically, women that were followers and hangers-on did more than just cook the meals. But she may or may not have done more than just cook the meals. My personal belief is that she and Jesus were married. That's my belief. Not sure how much of the church believes that, but when you read in the Bible, and if you know how women were treated, where Mary Magdalene showed up in places she would not have been there unless she had a special relationship with Jesus Christ.
And according to Luke's gospel, she provided for them the financial resources that she also helped support them in
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
There's actually a gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Yes. Yeah, I read it. I love it.
If that had been included, women would have been treated a lot differently.
Yeah.
And there's a scholar within the Cynthia
Mm-hmm.
that I think wrote a book about scholarly and
Mm-hmm. Yes.
there's also the woman with the alabaster jar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are many women mentioned in the Bible that don't probably get all of the credit that they should. Yes.
When the Anglican Church basically included gays in all aspects of Anglicanism, in Canada, and I suspect elsewhere, there was a group that broke away called the Southern Cross. Do they still exist, or has it become a combination?
I don't know if a group called that was in the United States, but definitely churches split right down the middle. Half the congregation stayed and half.
The problem was not in Canada, but there were congregations in Canada that felt that way. But all the African countries said, no. It was completely against everything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There are still churches that will not accommodate openly gay people. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of like also with the Roman Catholic Church. There's all these old believer Roman Catholics where they do the Mass still in Latin, and there's several sects of those around. I don't know if it's specifically called that, but I know that especially in some of the southern states, Texas had huge schisms in their Episcopal churches.
So can you say a word about the Anglican Church in the United States and the difference between that and the Anglican Church outside of the States?
No, because I actually didn't know that there was a separate Anglican Church of the United States. I thought we were just all Episcopalians, so
Very, very conservative.
I would assume. Yeah, so maybe that's what those ones that split and just call themselves Anglicans now. Yeah.
And stick to it and go along. And that's, I don't think it's all right. It's calendar.
It's
Reading will be different. It'll run the same for like 3-year cycles.
yes. We do have a 3-year cycle. It's called the lectionary, and it's now actually the revised common lectionary. And it's not only the Episcopal Anglican churches that follow it, but also the Roman Catholic and the Lutheran. Do the Methodists follow the same? RCL, yeah. So most of the established denominations follow the RCL now, and there's year A, B, and C. We are now in year B. The year starts with the first Sunday of Advent, which is the 4 weeks before Christmas. So yes, you do know. I can tell you, right now, what year C readings will be for a Sunday in 2029. And the Revised Common Lectionary is also in the Book of Common Prayer, so you can look it up and know. Yeah.
Does that mean that you go to any Anglican church and except for maybe the sermon, the rest of it would be the same, the readings would be the same,
Yep.
the songs might be the same?
Songs would probably be a little bit different, depending on what the congregation knows and what their music director, if they've got one, does. But yes, the readings would be the same. And yeah.
Also, I in the space of this plan, we had very few Anglican churches in our area.
Well, I think it's the people that are more conservative. Yes. They tell us that the Episcopalians are way too liberal. And they tell us that the ones on the West Coast are way, way too liberal. But yeah, that would be the case. Yeah. In fact, I come from the greater Portland metro area, Portland, Oregon, and I'd have to look it up because I'm not even sure if there's an Anglican church in that area. I'll have to look it up. So, yeah.
Can you say a word about what's behind the little door there and just say how to treat the altar area?
Sure. So behind the little door here, we have things that are very important to us. So we have wafers for communion. Only now we're using some real bread. So this would come out to the table. We would be set with a cloth. And there would be a chalice also. And there would be wine. And during the service, then the bread and the wine is blessed or consecrated. And with the help of everybody here, that becomes the body and blood of Jesus Christ, but not in the manner that the Roman Church thinks. But it's here, and we go through the ceremony, we bless it, we consecrate it, and then it's offered to the congregation. What's left over after the service is called the reserved sacrament. So if we have people going out to see people that are homebound or ill, we can take communion to them. And it will be the same communion, the same bread and wine that was shared by all of us at the service, not just something we threw into a bag and took out to them. Anything else about that? Okay. We also have an oil that we use for unction, or when we have communion after people come up to have communion, or even if they don't want to, there's a minister at the door that if the person wants to have some special prayers for themselves or others, the minister can then pray with them and bless them with this oil. And we also have gluten-free wafers, so we're very inclusive. So when this red light is on over here, that means that we have reserved sacrament over here. That tells us Jesus is present. The only time this light goes off, and this is empty, happens on Maundy Thursday, which is the Thursday in Holy Week. We celebrate the Last Supper in the words that Christ gave us. And at the end of that, because Jesus then went away to pray and then be crucified, everything is stripped from here and put away until Easter, when Christ is risen. So most of the time, that red light's going to be on, and when it is, it means we have reserved sacrament and Jesus is present. Okay. Anything else?
I'm sorry I keep prompting questions, but I'm thinking of things that people have asked me, so if you don't mind, I'll talk.
Yeah.
So is everyone in this church a believer? Do you have to be a believer to receive? And is everybody in this church Anglican? Did everybody come from the Anglican tradition?
Absolutely not to all of that. You know, there are probably more lapsed Catholics or anybody else that did not feel welcome elsewhere and feels like this is their spiritual home. Everyone is welcome, and that's what I find so wonderful and embracing about the Anglican Episcopal Church. You are welcome. We want to make everybody welcome. You're not a believer? Okay. You know, you can still come to communion because you're sharing a meal with us. That's what it's about. In the Roman Church, you can only go to communion if you've been baptized and probably had your first communion, because it is the body and blood of Christ, the actual body and blood. That's not us. Christ is present in our Eucharist, but we all make it so. And it's sharing that meal. We are all sharing the Last Supper that Jesus had with his disciples here on earth. Everybody's welcome. Man, maybe it will convert you.
Are we all Anglican here?
Oh, no, we're not all Anglican here. Heaven forbid, you're not.
Lots of different denominations.
Lots of different denominations, for sure. Yeah. Yes? The only thing that the Anglican Church has to do with that is that we're under the Anglican umbrella. In Mexico, we are called Anglican. This is the Anglican Church of Mexico. we use the Book of Common Prayer from the United States. Our entire service is an Episcopal service, which doesn't differ very much from a true Anglican service. Just a few things, like we're not praying for the king.
Anglicans have the Archbishop of Canterbury
Yes,
as the religious head of the Anglican Church.
yes.
So what does the American Episcopalian Church have?
Presiding bishop.
So, and he's the top dog.
He's the top dog, and right now it's Michael Curry. Michael Curry, and if you ever get the opportunity to read any of his writings, he's absolutely amazing. He actually gave the homily at Harry and Meghan's wedding. He is an amazing, amazing man. So it's going to be hard to top him, I think, when we elect a new presiding bishop. So, okay, I don't know what time it is. Oh, we have lots of time. Yes?
So can you tell us something about this particular
No. Michelle or Sylvia can. I've only actually been coming, I've been in Mexico for 6 years, but only been here since the first of the year.
Sylvia is part of our administrative structure, the vestry of the church, is the leadership of the church. She is the senior warden. And you've been here how many years? 20. 20. Yes, so she can tell you something.
Hello? Okay. Even the term senior warden, probably some of you are thinking, where does that come from? Sounds like we're in a prison here or something. But it's just the term that is used sort of for the senior person of the vestry, which is our organizational structure. There are 7 people that are elected that are members of vestry, and they are the lay people who run the church. And we have several of those members with us today. And so then we have the senior warden and the junior warden, and we both do different things, but again have sort of overall responsibility for some of the functions that go on in the church. This particular church has been around since the 1970s in very early stages. And at that point, of course, there were more expats that were moving to the area, although they'd been here in the 30s and the 40s as well. And there were some bits of church then, but not very much. But in the 70s, people started actually vacationing. Anglican priests would be here and would offer to hold services for people because they'd be other people who were missing that, and they would just have in-home services. And that went on for a number of years. And gradually I think the first full-time priest that we had was Iris Slocum. And she is one of our dancing saints up there, the second from the end. So she was the first rector. So that was when we became a fully established church, as opposed to being a mission or just an offshoot of one of the churches from Guadalajara. And in about, what year did we buy the building, Dan? You've just been working on the parish profile. This building used to be a gymnasium dance studio. So when the church first bought it, I was always told it was a dance studio. And for any of you who had been in this building before the mural, we had mirrors all along the side of that wall, which didn't make sense to a lot of people, although I always liked it because you could see everything that was happening if you saw. But some people thought it was kind of one of those things where you're looking at yourself, and that's not, Anyway, at some point, we got rid of the mirrors and added the dancing saints. But so the church has been around since the 1970s, and I think the building was bought in the 80s, and Iris became the first rector, and she was our rector for many years. She was an absolutely marvelous woman, and she was in the process of writing a book on Mary Magdalene. So there's another one in the works, and she had brought it to a certain point before she died, and then Robin took it over and was editing and doing work. So now we're going to have to find somebody else to carry on with that work. So we were lucky to have some very, very talented people. And then during that time, this area didn't used to be there, so this was added in the 90s. They pushed out so that there was room for a choir. And many changes have happened over the years. The additions of stained glass windows. And when I first came, we had what we now call the multi-purpose room, or the meeting room, was where the office was, and the priest also had an office in that area. And out here was the kitchen. So which is now so I still every once in a while say, I'm going to the kitchen. And I mean, that's been like a long time, but the brain takes a long time to change. And so various campaigns over the years, at one point, we knew we needed, the kitchen was very ancient and old and crumbling. And so in the end, we decided to switch things around. And so the area where we fundraised for many years to be able to build that kitchen was the area where Al used to have his bar. It was just an open area. But so that became our kitchen, and then we switched and moved the offices over to here. And over the years, we've had many different, the majority of the time we were volunteer run. And we had people who took turns working in the office, and just about everything was done by volunteers. But gradually, as we have aged as a congregation, we have certainly found that we're like Arturo, the addition of Arturo. Like, people used to be always the ones who sat at the tables and took down and did all that stuff, but it got harder and harder to get some of those functions happening. And also we did hire a part-time person in the office to man the phone and be of assistance to the rector or whoever was doing things. So it has been an evolutionary process, and of course, we're delighted that we now have moved into this other new phase. I feel like a butterfly sometimes, that we keep changing and evolving, and now we have this wonderful stage back here, and lots of things to look forward to in the future.
Sylvia, on that note, can you say a word about the search committee and where we are in looking for a new rector, and what the congregation is interested in by the survey?
Before you do that, can you tell us what a rector is?
Sorry. Okay. The rector is a priest, but it's just a different sort of, again, my background is not Anglican, so you've got another denomination here.
So, because we are a stand-alone parish, the priest in charge, who has been designated, chosen by the congregation and then consecrated by the bishop to be the priest here, they're called a rector. If we were still a mission church, that being under the umbrella of a church in Guadalajara, the priest in charge here would be called a vicar, like in England. Incumbent, not, that would be, yeah, the rector would be the incumbent priest that's here, but we don't use that. Yes. Oh, yeah. 1988. In 1988, the Episcopal Church in the United States, the Anglican churches ordained women for the first time. Yeah.
And Iris was one of the first to be ordained and had a huge fight with the bishop to become ordained, but she did not back down. And
Her book, her altar book that we use during the liturgy of the table, is still back in our office back there. And it's an honor to use that book. I never, of course, met Iris, but her notes are in the margins, little notes of what to do here and there. looked like my first prayer book when I was a priest in training. I had notes all over, sticky notes here and everything. I was actually at a conference one day and somebody held my Book of Common Prayer up and said, "It's okay to do this."
Cecilia, can you talk about the search committee and the rector?
So we haven't had a real rector for a number of years. We've had what we've called priests in charge. So we have James Twyman now, and he was priest in charge last year and is this year, and had said that he was willing to stick with us for this year. But we started a search committee because we knew that we needed to find a new rector, and we were hoping to have somebody who would come, and our hope is to be here at least 5 years, to have some stability and a chance to grow and for people to really start to expand and grow. And so that there is a real process to doing that. And like as was mentioned, it is the congregation who does choose the priest. And so that obviously is a process where you want to do it carefully and thoughtfully and prayerfully. And so we had a group of 3 people, of whom Dan Pfeiffer is one of them, Weezy Burgess and Sherry Ware, have spent pretty much the last year working on that and determining who we were, what we are, what we wanted. And so we did a wonderful congregational survey that went out to everybody, and things like, what are the most important factors to you in a priest? Do you want somebody who is very congenial? Do you want somebody who preaches good sermons? So that you rank things 1, 2, 3. So we had a really good grasp from people of what we were looking for. And it was amazing how it was very common threads all the way through. So we know what we want, what we need. And so now we've written a job description, and the ad is going to be placed, I think, this week or next week, yes. It's ready to go. And so we're very excited. And the other thing they did was develop a parish profile. So that was looking at exactly who we are. And this is something that we can give to anybody who's interested and say, this here, you get a good snapshot of who we are, what we do, what we think is important, the importance of our outreach, the importance of the community. All of those things are highlighted there. So it was a very good process because we really did see who we were and what we valued, and very, very common thoughts.
We also made it very clear if they were not interested in you sharing space with us, that they weren't the record because we believe in this partnership, and so they have to be supportive of it, or they're not a good fit for us.
Well, yeah, shared space was a very important section of the parish profile, saying, hey, this is who we are, and we're excited about it, and it's really working well, and we just all love the enthusiasm and the energy that comes from both Bear Stage and the LCUUF. And so we just feel we have really benefited, and I think there's going to be people out there who are going to go, wow, yes, love it. Because just about everybody you talk to now, churches are sharing space. It's the way you survive. So I think that's our future. Question?
So I wonder if you might speak a little bit about your outreach and social justice work.
Certainly. Darn, I can't nab somebody. But I am a part of that committee. Outreach has always been a very, very important part, again, of our congregation. And back in the late 1990s, we had a wonderful lady whose name will now escape me, of course. But she felt that we really needed to be involved in the community. She was a social worker and had very strong ideas on how we could reach out. And for a number of years, we used to do a huge bazaar. I don't know if anybody was here at the time of Regalorama, okay, in the first Saturday and Sunday, and we would collect donations all through the year, and we would get together every couple of weeks, and we'd sort through the donations, and we'd price things, and we'd box them up, and then we would set up. And when I first came, it was just in the garden, but by the time we finished, we had the garden, the streets were covered, and the whole parking lot was covered in tents, so that we had so much merchandise. And it was something the community really looked forward to. I mean, everything was priced very reasonably. The Mexican community, I mean, the people were lined up back to the Carretera waiting to get in when it was just so much, again, energy and excitement. And we sold everything and anything. And, you know, even the things that, terrible old pillows that you thought, nobody will want this. Well, guess what? Some of the dog lovers loved those terrible old pillows that you didn't even really want to. So that's where I learned there is a home for everything. Don't throw anything out, because somebody will value this and make good use of it. And so I was involved with that for a number of years, and we would have like several hundred volunteers, people that, you know, from the whole community, we would be able to pull in and would help. And we'd have cashiers and sales, and had a food booth. We would usually sell food. We also had things like the food lovers section, so we had homemade jams and things, and we had books, used books, and this is the days when books were hard to come by. We had a whole big section that was books, and that was very, very popular, and electronics, and yeah, it was very successful. And we were very happy to make, like, if we could come up with 200,000 pesos out of that and use that to support, and again, we would always get people to apply for grants. So and our focus was always health and education for the lakeside community. And so those were the areas that we chose to support. And then in 2016, we were approached by the people from Have Hammers. And it was worked out that we had a couple of congregation members where he was with Have Hammers and she was somewhere else. Anyway, they said, why don't we come up with a consignment store? We could do this jointly. And so that's when Todo Bueno was born, which is the consignment store. I'm getting my directions wrong. This way, I think. So it's done, we are partners with Have Hammers, who, are you familiar with Have Hammers? They do woodworking for young people and teach them those skills. So they have their workshops in 2/3 of the building, and 1/3 of the building is where the actual consignment store is and bazaar. And again, it's staffed by volunteers from both our church, people in the community, as well as Have Hammers. And all of the profits from that bazaar go to charity. So the profits are split evenly between Have Hammers and St. Andrew's Outreach. And every single peso goes to charity. And we have been wonderfully successful in the last couple of years to be able to do grants twice a year. Of course, COVID, we were out of action for a while, but we are looking at 300,000, 400,000 pesos twice a year that we can give out in grants. And so the people that we're giving grants to are places like the Tepewa, San Pedro, Cruz Roja, all kinds of, yes, several different orphanages. And what we focus on is we say, give us proposals for projects you want to do. We had decided we wouldn't support, say, operational expenses, but we wanted a defined project or piece of equipment or something that we could then follow up and make sure, yes, this has happened as it was supposed to. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, feeding programs, all kinds of different things and I know it's very, very important as well with your group. So I think that is something that we share. And any other questions? The flowers are by donation, and they're always magnificent, I admit. So we encourage people to make a donation, and at this point, I think we're asking 600 pesos, which I know is a lot for people, but people give the flowers in memory of someone they've loved, or perhaps I do Thanksgiving for my grandchildren, so different things that are marking occasions. Sandra loves to remember some of the wonderful members from our congregation who are no longer with us. So it's just sort of a way of honoring someone's memory or giving thanks. And then what we do with the flowers afterwards is when we're fully manned, we will take them down and then break them up and take them out to parishioners in the congregation. Yes?
Sylvia, if somebody from our fellowship wanted to donate them 600 pesos for specific reasons or what's the process?
Okay, we would. The way we do it now is people just fill out there's on the sign-up sheets out there. There is a flowers section. So if somebody was interested, they could easily fill that out, and then it's a matter of making the payment to the church or to the treasurer. And if sometimes we have 2 or 3 people go together and do it, so that it's not something you have to do totally on your own. But we could figure that out and just, yes, that would be wonderful.
And do you have a weekly announcement or sheet you give out and you mention it there?
Yes, we do, yes.
Unitarians don't have any physical paper, so nobody would know.
Okay.
You would just have to tell me.
You have to tell us.
It could be on a slide. Our thanks too.
Yeah.
I'm envying that. There was something last Sunday I was saying, I wish we had a slide. Yes, Chris?
I'm just wondering, is there like a written guide or something that tells the names of all these people?
Yes. The brochure that's right over there in that rack lists all of the people.
I always like to point out that the guy second from the left is Charles Wesley, because the brother of John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist.
And so, yes, we are a bit of an eclectic group. And I think all of us who have moved to Mexico we have to be eclectic to be here. And so we've just found a good home here, and people that don't always feel the same way we do, but we come to consensus and make things work. Yes?
I'm just sitting here thinking that Unitarian Universalists also eclectic group. There are pagans, there are Christians, there are Buddhists, there are atheists. So it feels like this has been a really good matchup value-wise. What we believe.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of places where we overlap. Maybe not the Jesus part for a lot of us, but certainly the way that you all view the world is very similar.
I agree. And I'm really looking forward to Matt's presentation next week so I can learn more. So, anything else?
Matt, do you want to say a word about the conversations we plan to have together on a pretty regular basis about the partnership?
I can say just a little bit, but we are trying to, on a regular basis, have conversations of our leadership, both lay leaders and clergy, just to make sure that things are going well. It's trying to see that everything is going smoothly, that there are no surprises.
As in any union, there's
Yes.
always things to sort out and things that come up that nobody ever thought of, and we just want to make sure conversation is going on and that we work things out and we don't let things become an issue.
We're trying hard to figure out how people sign up to bring cookies on Sunday. That's the number of weeks.
Yes, I mean, the coffee hour is one thing that's evolving, and as we figure it out how it works. But again, I love the fact that the two groups are having coffee together. And yes, sometimes we have cookies, sometimes we don't. And
sometimes you do, and I mean, I think it's just working, and I love the fact that you come out now after the service, and coffee's already been made. Michael's been out there and got it ready for us. So.
You'll have brownies this coming Sunday. I'm baking.
Christine is making those this Sunday. This Sunday, for example, I'll be preaching, but I can't celebrate in the Anglican Church. So Christine will be celebrating. We're really excited that we have a partnership like that. We also have some retired clergy in the congregation that participate in the services too. So we have a wide array of people that can help lead, and we're happy for that. But we're really excited about the new rector and the whole process of getting them here. Thank you so much for coming today. Don't feel like this has to be the last questions you ask. We'll point you to brochures, or we'll point you to the right person, or try to get the answers for you. Again, thank you on behalf of our church, Laurie Devine, who's working with the education team, and myself. If you have other ideas for things that you think we could do that would be supportive educationally across the board, please, by all means, tell us. We would love to offer that. So, thank you for coming. And thank you, Christine. That was well done. I learned a lot. Thank you.